Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. My name is Jordan and I'm joined today as ever by my plucky co-host Dakota. And today we are sending out a very special PSA because we're sure if you're watching this, maybe you have a loved one who loves comic books. They like to collect them. Maybe you are the loved one who likes comic books and you'd like your loved ones to know, hey, when you're buying me gifts for Christmas, maybe it's a birthday, here's some guidelines on maybe some stuff that would be helpful for me to get, right? Because the age-old struggle is buying things for someone who is a collector, who knows what they like, and not really knowing where to start. Or you end up with, I bought this thing for this person, but do they really like it? Maybe they already have it, all that kind of stuff. So we've compiled some ideas from our perspective as comic collectors. If we were to have someone who said, I don't know much about comics, but I'd like to get you something comic-related, and we got some ideas to share. So Dakota, what are some of the things when you think of right away that would be helpful for a comic collector to be getting from maybe a non-collector loved one?
So I created a list of most of these things that you can find on Amazon. I'll leave that link down below, so you can just go find the tab that says gift ideas for comic collectors. But I tried to stay away from the actual comic books because a lot of times as collectors we usually pick up the things we want, and then there are things that I don't have that I do want, but it's kind of hard for others to know that. So I tried to steer clear of that. If you're watching this and you know exactly what books you want your loved ones to get you, you can make your own Amazon wish list, and I'll leave a link for Jordan and I's wish list down below so you can kind of see what that is. You can leave notes of like, oh, this is a book I really, really want, or things like that. So you can kind of customize it yourself if you want to.
I think that's a great point, Dakota, as you said, because, when you say, oh, I love Spider-Man, that can mean a million different things, right? So I think that's a good point in saying it can be helpful to narrow it down a little bit more as far as like what specific things.
Right. As far as kind of adjacent to comic books, I made sure I added some just generic shirts in there. So you've got your Batman logo, your Superman logo, Spider-Man logo. I don't know if your collector is really crazy. They want the entire shirt to be all crazy Spider-Man. I thought, everybody can just do with a simple Batman shirt. That's there if you want it. Some things for your comic collector that they probably, if they don't need it right now, they're going to need it eventually probably, is bags and boards. So that's to protect your comic books. You probably know that if you've been around them when they buy their comic books, they're probably putting them in the sleeves, keeping them nice. If you need to know more about that, we've got a video talking about all the terms and everything. But then there's also boxes. So as collectors ourselves, we know that we can kind of accumulate quite a few comics pretty quickly. So they're eventually going to need another box probably. You can get the regular, just white boxes. They're a little bit cheaper, but if you wanted to go a little bit above and beyond that, there are kind of the comic book art boxes. Those you'll probably have to find at your local comic book store that's around you. You probably find those online somewhere, but it's usually just easier to walk into the store and then you can see what they look like and pick out their favorite character type of box. That's kind of what I'm switching most of my boxes to now. On top of that, you can get them, like I said, there's the bags and boards for protecting your comics, but then if you want to go even more protection, there are comic capsules, which we have another episode where we interviewed the creators of comic capsules, but that's going to be kind of a hard plastic shell to really protect your comics. You can even hang those on the wall if you wanted to. So those are going to be good for your collector's more valuable comics. Now let's say you think maybe your collector has already gotten a lot of comics and you maybe want to get them something that can save you on your storage if you're living with this person. And you maybe want to get them a digital subscription to comic books. So this one, maybe you want to float the idea out there, be like, oh, hey, I heard they've got digital comics now, because as collectors, we are very opinionated. Some collectors, I think it's probably not the majority, but some collectors may be like, oh, I don't want those digital comics. I want the real paper. And that's totally fair. But Jordan and I both really enjoy our digital comics because then we can read some of those comics that we're not sure if we want to buy physical copies of yet, but we can get a taste of them on the digital side, and then we can get them if we really want them. But you can find that for Marvel, DC, Amazon has their kind of comics library as well.
I think you can do those as like gift subscriptions too. Like you pay for the year maybe in advance. It's like called Marvel Unlimited. I don't remember what the DC one's called, Dakota.
I think it's DC Infinite.
DC Infinite. So that kind of stuff can be cool too, because it's like, hey, here's the gift that keeps on giving, as it were. Because there's a lot of comics on those streamers, or what? Not a streamer. What do you want to call it? Subscription. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally,
digital
since just this year, I've read over 500 comics on my Marvel app. So very useful. And like I said, I was realizing how much space I was taking up with the comics I was buying, like physical copies of. So this has been super helpful for me. Another option, if you want to go slightly outside of comic books, I've always loved the idea of the Marvel and DC encyclopedias. So this is just a big encyclopedia book of all the characters that are in Marvel or all the characters that are in DC. You could also get this for Star Wars and other things as well. But this is just fun as collectors. Like, we like these characters. We want to, maybe we want to know more, or we just like to flip through and see them all, kind of reminisce of like all the stories that we have read with those characters in them.
In the same vein as the encyclopedias, there are also some comic adjacent books you can get that I think are pretty fun. There's one that I like. It's called Super Gods by Grant Morrison. It kind of is just a bit of like a retrospective kind of history on comics from a comic writer, kind of talking about just the origins of superhero comics, a lot of his insights into that. There's another one that I really like called Words for Pictures by a comic writer that Dakota likes, Brian Michael Bendis, a little bit about his experiences in writing comics, some of his thoughts, even kind of like a behind-the-scenes look at comic writing. And one of my all-time favorites is Alan Moore's Writing for Comics. Again, this one talks a little bit about like his process of writing comics, but a lot of it is kind of just his thoughts on storytelling, on comics, what that means. And you can find these pretty easily and pretty cheap. But I think if you have a collector that really enjoys comics, and if they like to just read in general, those can be really cool picks, because it adds a lot, I think, of kind of that glimpse behind the curtain, as it were, with some of these creators and some of their thoughts and insights on comic books.
Yeah. And the last thing I have is, we're going outside of books, we're going into more decor. I would recommend also some posters, and there's no shortage of posters out there in the world, but somebody that we've talked to that we like the art of quite a bit is Daryl Young. His art is very classic. It's very inspired by kind of what people would think of like the original comic book artist when things got popular was very Jack Kirby. His stuff is very inspired by that. So really whatever character, even pop culture, that he's got superheroes to like Godzilla type stuff. A lot of options there. I would recommend, if you get one of those, go the extra step and get your collector a poster to go with that. I'll put a link in the Amazon's area too for the right size for those posters, just because I think those are going to look much nicer when they're encased versus just like sticky tacked up on the wall. Help your collector out. Sometimes we put those kind of necessities off and we're just like, I'll just tape it up there. It looks much better in a frame, and the frames are pretty cheap. So I would recommend his posters, but you can check out any posters you like as well.
And of course, if you want to go with the bare basics, if you've got a local comic book store, that is huge. If you go in, a lot of them have gift cards, at least mine does around here. I think that's a great opportunity to get a gift too, because you support a local store. And again, if your loved one's a comic collector, chances are they probably spend more money than they should. Maybe not should, but maybe would like to in some sense. So if you could help out with that by getting a gift card, I think even like Half Price Books usually has a lot of cool comics, like secondhand. So that's another option. Really wherever comic books or graphic novels, that kind of thing might be sold too, could be a good idea for a gift as well. Those are some ideas that we have as comic book collectors to give some guidance to loved ones out there who may or may not know exactly what to be buying for their loved one who collects comics. So hopefully you find this helpful. Feel free to leave comments below on what other things you think we might have missed, if you agree, what things could be on there, if you've checked any of these out, or if you have any additional insights on this. So thanks for watching. Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay strong.